What's going on, everybody? This is Trevor Castlebar coming back at you once again with another video, licensed life insurance agent. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about a very high-level concept that I pretty much invented, maybe not invented, but basically came up with, and no one else has talked about, called the E and A scale. And it is very important to learn this concept when getting into the role of life insurance and basically just sales in general, but specifically within the role that I'm in, which is within life insurance within the final expense realm. So let's get to it. What is the E&A scale? Little bit of background, little bit of backstory. So as some of you may know, I was at this very, very high level final expense agency for a good 3 weeks. Very, very great experience. And one of the first things I learned within that first week, after going through that first week, it being my very first real experience on the ground, on the field within life insurance, was that there's kind of this scale of two opposite ends. You have the E and the A. The E stands for empathy, right? Empathy meaning being able to connect with people and share in their feelings. So say, for example, you're talking to Miss Betty and she expresses, you ask Miss Betty, so Miss Betty, kind of fill me in. What had you motivated to start looking around for some life insurance? Blah, 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 blah. Maybe ask another question. Let me ask you this, Miss Betty. If something were to happen to you, who would be responsible? Oh, my husband, because I don't know if he'd be able to do it. Oh my goodness, like what do you have to do? Oh my goodness, he'd probably have to go out and, he's retired, but he's so old, he might have to go knock doors or like ask neighbors. Oh my goodness, Miss. So empathy, showing empathy, connecting with someone in their feelings and their situation. I want to point something out though. Big difference between empathy and sympathy, okay? Empathy is connecting with someone and their feelings and their situation. Sympathy is feeling sorry for them. Now, sure, you can feel sorry for them, but you have to understand as well, right? A role like life insurance, you have to have a lot of good state control. You cannot get emotionally wrapped up in your prospects' stories, their life stories, okay? So on this empathetic side, you have empathy. You're also acting as more like a therapist. Me, for example, when I was getting into it, it was a role that, I have a lot of passion for. In Hawaii, grandparents, elderly, that's kupuna is the name for that. And, we have a lot of respect for our elders over here. So I came into every single conversation, every single day, I came out with, okay, I'm just trying for help aunties and uncles, that they filled out the form, they need this, and I'm trying to go in with a lot of empathy and actually genuinely caring. You're pulling the emotion out of them. And like, you'll be surprised, guys, like some calls you'll get into, like depending on the buyer archetype, like there'll be prospects where they'll just start pouring into you, and you can use that to your advantage if you use your persuasive skills and your sales skills in the right way. So empathy, emotion, and therapist, okay, that's one side. Then you have the complete opposite side, the A scale. This is called apathy, okay? Apathy meaning like void any emotion, anything like that. You're not even thinking about them. You don't even care about them. You go into it with, I don't really care emotionality. I'm just going to go complete straight face, complete doctor. And that's more so like the consultant / doctor role where, you go into a patient, every doctor's role is the same. You're very professional. You don't have any emotionality. Even if, say, for example, you're doing your diagnosis, maybe you're going through underwriting, you're trying to find them a good carrier, a good policy to write. There's no real emotionality. You're going through underwriting. They may be telling you all these problems. You're like, wow, I'm really sorry. So da-da-da. Like, no emotionality. No emotionality. Just like, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, man, I had 2 cancers back to back, and then I lost my leg to diabetes, and, I have COPD and asthma, and like, the apathy side is really much like, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Anyways, you know what I mean? It's like it's very much in your tone as well, not just in the way you present yourself, but also a big part of that is in your tone. I would also say it has to do with also indifference. You know what I mean? Indifference meaning, and the very, very extremes, it's like you don't even care how the situation goes. That's basically just being a good salesman. It's like, frick, I don't need a sale. I'm trying for help you, auntie. You know what I mean? And you got to have that mindset sometimes, because especially when you have archetypes like a bully or a straight shooter where they're trying to push you around on the call, you need to have that indifference. Be like, brah, auntie, like you trying for interrupt me and all this kind of stuff. I trying for help you. You know what I mean? So like, are we going to get this, or are we going to end the call here? Because I can't help you if you're just going to interrupt me and do all these things. You know what I mean? So like that also comes with call control. That's a whole thing entirely. Now, again, empathy, therapist, emotionality, apathy, consultant, and indifference, okay? Those are the two very extremes. I'm going to tell you the positives and negatives of each of them. The positives of being a strongly on the E side is you can definitely connect with people. You can really understand them. You can really connect with them on an emotional level. The downside is that if you get too close, especially towards the end of the sale, depending on what your guys' sales process is afterwards, you know, either you send it off to your upline and they take care of it on the back end, or you're the one having to, like, you know, they're actually your client, so you're having to take care of the back end too. You get too close to the E scale in the short term, in the one call close sale, and then even in the long term, you essentially become their friend. And, you know, as some of my trainers told me, is it easier to say no to someone you barely know or say no to a friend? Say no to a friend, right? So it's way easier too. You have to understand too, the downsides of being too much on the E side is, so as much as you can kind of empathize, you know, sharing in their feelings in their situation, you guys got to remember, right, is like, this is sales at the end of the day. We got to eat too, you know? So like, we can try to have as much empathy as we can for these prospects and turn them into clients within the sales process. But we also got to push for the sales sometimes too, you know what I mean? In their best interest, not in a pushy way, but in their best interest, being like, you know, Miss Betty, you've been kicking this down the road for the last 2 or 3 years. Why is that? Can you give me permission to hold you accountable so that we can't keep kicking this down the road? Because you've expressed to me how much you need this, right? So empathy, but use that to your advantage, not to the point where you feel so sorry and then you get emotionally wrapped up. Another downside I'll add, finally kind of wrapping up the E section, is if you get wrapped up in your prospects' lives, your prospect and or clients' lives, and you take that home, like, that's not good. That's not good, you know. Now I have an office, kind of keep that here. Anything outside here doesn't exist, you know what I mean? So this is work, you know, especially when this is an industry and a job where you're dealing with people. You need to, again, that goes back to emotional state control, especially on the E side. Apathy side is a little bit different though. The apathy side, which is like, you don't care. I don't care if I get the sale or not. I'm trying for help you know what I mean? So it's like, do you want my help or not? Doing it the right way, you're just there as like completely straight-faced. Anything they say facts about their life, whatever, it just completely rolls over your head. You know, that's the right way to do it. The very, very wrong way to do it is the typical like jock life insurance agents who, you know, want to put people into bad policies, and they train their downline to do things wrong and illegally, and they don't care. They're just in it for the money. They don't even care about people. That's the very, very extreme, the negative side of the apathetic side, which is like, you don't even care about the client or the prospect. Like, you just want their money. And sometimes, you know, especially in your tone and, you know, your cadence and all that, the way you do things, sometimes they can sense that and they'll hang up. You know what I mean? If they truly can sense in your voice that you don't really care about them. You're just in it for the sale. And I'll say this too, right? Which is like, you do that kind of stuff in this industry long term, like it will come back to haunt you. Just be aware, right, that like this is an industry of, we are helping people. That's really what it is at the end of the day. We are helping people. They, especially if you're doing like inbound or outbound, when they fill out the form, they've expressed that they need a solution, or at least are interested in a solution to their problem. So me personally, I lean a little more to the E, which is because I care about people. Sometimes I care about people a little bit too much to where in my life they take advantage of me. You know what I mean? And that's something I gotta work on. You know, sometimes I gotta lean more towards the middle. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm in it for the sale, because I gotta eat too, right? I gotta eat too, and you gotta eat too. You know what I mean? So, like, sometimes if you gotta push, if you gotta roll objections, don't take what people say at face value. Roll objections, keep going, and at some point you have nothing to lose. Go for the hang up. You know what I mean? Go for the hang up. Don't go for the scheduled callback, because we obviously know that scheduled callbacks, most of the time, they, like 99% of the time, you try to call them, they never pick up, right? I've heard a few differentiating opinions on this, which is, it really depends on your selling style. It's like music, right? Selling style, you know, everybody has their own type of style and way that they sell and the way that they speak. One of my trainers expressed to me, when I really figured this out, and it clicked that first week that I kind of figured this out, he expressed to me, in his own opinion, mind you, my trainer at the previous agency I was at one point, his very first year, he sold like 500K AP. And he's, you know, now one of the main trainers there at the agency that I was at. He expressed to me, in his own opinion, that you want to be more towards the apathetic side with a splash of emotion. But remembering on a dime, right, is like, keep that in the back of your head because you can use that as ammo later on in the situation. If they bring something up, or, you know, you can do lawyer talk, as one of the other top guys there talks about, like lawyer talk, and use that to your advantage within the sale to kind of throw it back at them. If you're really trying to start off, I would say kind of gauge when you guys are on the dialer and you guys are listening to your own calls, gauge where you guys personally are at. Again, me, I lean more towards the E. I gotta, you know, stay more towards the center. There are some people out there though where maybe it's just their opinion. They're maybe just getting into this industry because they want money. They don't even care about people. They're just in it for the money, and so they're definitely going to be apathetic. You know what I mean? Sometimes you actually have to learn how to care about people, right? And lean more towards the empathy, because yeah, like this affects people. This does not just affect you making money and making whatever sold you the dream to get into this industry, right? So it really just depends. You guys kind of, I would highly recommend look at yourself objectively from a third perspective and being able to like really analyze, okay, like what type of personality am I within this E&A scale? Am I someone who's more emotional, who I care about people? Or am I someone who like can act more apathetic, which is like, I just want the sale. You know what I mean? And I would really, really, really think on that. And then as you're continuing to develop your sales style and the way that you sell and the way that you speak, really analyzing, okay, sometimes, you know, it depends on the archetypes too, right? Because sometimes you'll have to be more empathetic, sometimes you'll have to be more apathetic. But just to start, guys, just to start, if you're just getting into this industry, just to simply understand this concept, I would highly recommend either stay in the middle or a little bit to the A with a splash of E. You want to be like right on the sides, like, woo, like a little bit like this, like a little bit like this, balance, right? Just depending on who you're talking to. Very, very important concept, again, that I kind of figured out on my own that very first week being in the field, that I've taken into basically every single call that I go on. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys thought it was very, very informative. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace. Aloha.